Near mint condition, the home of collected editions.
That cover's so awesome.
That, as they say, is that. Marvel Comics, let's go ahead and get started. How's it going, all you minties? Uncanny Omar here from Near Mint Condition, the home of collected editions. And this is it. This is the last video of the year 2024. And how am I going to end the year? By talking about my top 10 favorite reads in graphic novel format in 2024. So let's check out the list together. And welcome back, everybody. So every year at the end of the year, I do these type of lists, the best of, and this year we're wrapping it up with the best reads of 2024, my personal list. This is different than the list of the top 10 best graphic novels collected editions released in 2024. Those are mainly for presentation and restoration and just the overall look of the product. This is actual reads, books I enjoyed. And if you know me and you've been following my channel for a while, I read a lot. A lot. And that might be an understatement. And it's sometimes difficult. This list, you know, throughout the year, I switch it up. I'm like, this actually I enjoyed more than this. And then by the end of the year, I end up with like 30 or so books. And I'm like, oh my gosh, I got to cut this down to 10. But it's a lot of fun to put together. And thank you all for commenting. And I would love to know what your best 10 reads are, your favorite read, or your top 5. And of course, if you watch this video and you don't agree, you're like, well, what the hell, man? What's wrong with you? It's all subjective, right? But I still like to know what other people think, and I still like to know what other people enjoy. Now, every year that I do this, I also talk about the people, the wonderful creators, the people behind the scenes, the people that got you into comics, and we lost quite a number of people this year. So first, I'd like to just go through a list of wonderful people that we lost this year, and whom without, I know I would not be doing this. So, in no particular order, Trina Robbins, M.D. Bright, Greg Hildebrandt, Tom Luth, Michael Zulli, Cesar Rodriguez, Akira Toriyama, Carl Moline, Elena Salcedo, Don Perlin, John Cassaday, Jennifer Lumley, Paul Neary, Sam Blanchard, Jim Hambrick, Keiichi Tanami, John Burns, Ryan McCardle, Olivia Jose, Ed Pisker, Makoto Takahashi, Carl Mostert, Bernie Meyerwald, Peter B. Gillis, Steve J. Ray, Tim Vo, Kazuo Umezu, Sarah Becker, Jose Ramon Bernardo, Clydeen Nee, Jeffrey Varege, Attila Futaki, Taro Nami, Sid Freid-Fertig, Jose Debo, Ramona Fradon, Benny Potter, Hinako Ashihara, Francine Grillo, and my dad, who I lost in October 21st, who is my favorite storyteller, and whom I miss every day. Te quiero, papi. Y te extraño. It's always difficult to cut from, here's all the people we lost, to, hey, let's talk about some fun books, and great books, and scary books, and this year was a lot harder, though. So, in no particular order, I'm going to be talking about these books, no chronological order, not my best read of the year. Although you could probably tell which one my favorite one was when I get all hyped up. So let's go ahead and start the list. And I will leave in the description of the video the timestamps. Oh, and hit that like button, please. Please hit that like button. Goes a long way for us here on the channel. Dwellings by Jay Stevens, published by Oni Press. I am a huge fan of horror. I'm an even bigger fan of horror anthologies, and you can blame Tales from the Crypt and the EC Comics for all that, and the Warren comics, but what this does is give you a horror anthology with a little bit of a twist. And that twist comes in the art style that J. Stevens uses through here. You are lured into a state of false security because you're like, oh, it looks like those old Harvey comics, like Casper the Friendly Ghost. But it is brutal and rough and so gory at times. This all takes place in the town of Elwich, which is supposed to be this haunted little town. And the stories are intertwined. One death and one murder leads into the next story arc. Sometimes the characters are doing something awful in the background of one of the main stories. So there's ghost stories in here, there's just crime stories in here, and then there's monster stories in here. But that juxtaposition of the art style with the writing and the dark themes, it just works. It works in so many levels that I thought, I didn't think I was going to like it at first, but I could not put it down. I read all the fake ads. I read all of the panels in the comics within the comics. It was a wonderful experience, and I hope to see more of this type of storytelling in the future. But that is how I'm going to kick off this list. Mature content, by the way, I forgot to mention that. Totally mature. Sorry, I always try to warn people ahead of time. Yeah, mature. Not for kids. Fantastic Four by Ryan North, published by Marvel Comics. If you were to tell me I was going to put a Fantastic Four comic on my best reads of the year, I would think, man, you are crazy unless it's one of my favorite writers coming in. It's been a while since I have enjoyed a Fantastic Four comic. And Ryan North, I'll be honest, when I saw that his name was attached to it, I immediately thought of Squirrel Girl. In spite of how people feel about it, I know people love it. The humor just wasn't for me, so I thought, okay, well, let's give it a shot. My buddy Peter M., Crushing Crisis, loves this book. And I was like, okay, well, I'll try out the trade paperback. And I fell in love with it. Absolutely fell in love with it. He is bringing the characters of Reed, Sue, Johnny, and Ben to the spotlight by giving them one story per issue. So the stories don't really continue into the next issue. Every once in a while, you get treated to a special two-parter. There are 4 trades available of this already. It's crazy that this started. Or I read this in January of 2024. But it's a special treat because you get like 2 issues that are two-parters. But everything else reminds me of the old Silver Age type of storytelling. Not with the bogged-down dialogue and repetitive narrative, but more so of it starts at the beginning of issue number 5, for example, and it ends by the end of issue number 5. There's sci-fi elements in here. There's science on top of science that I remember trying to Google one day going, is that really possible? You know what? I'm just going to let Ryan North fly and do his thing. It really does feel like the book is back to being that status quo of the world's greatest comic magazine. I freaking love this book, and I cannot wait for it's the curse of being a trade paperback waiter, right? Like, you have to wait until 6 months have gone by to get your next read. You single issue folks, I am so jealous of you all because you get to get this monthly, and every issue, even as ridiculous as the dinosaur issues are still some of the best Fantastic Four I've read. Iban Coelho does most of the artwork here, but he's also joined by a few other artists. If you haven't read Fantastic Four in years, if you soar it off, do yourself a favor and get that first collection. Worth it. And I almost forgot. For everyone. Okay, maybe rated teen. Not even teen. It's for everybody. It's great. It's a great read. Korgi, The Complete Tale, by Christian Slade, published by Top Shelf Productions. I am a sucker for fantasy movies and fantasy cartoons. I am a child, born in the 70s, but raised and growing up in the 80s. And anytime I see something like this, I don't know, my brain immediately goes to the David the Gnome cartoon that I grew up with, or even I love the Ewoks and the Paw Paw Bears and things like that. But I completely fell in love with this amazing black and white series. I could not put it down. And what Christian Slade does here is gives you a fantasy world, but you have corgis, they're the main characters. They're the ones that are the pure of heart. And it's such a beautiful story in tribute to these wonderful dogs. My brother owns, well, this is his second Korgi, and I was like, you got to buy this. It is, you'll fall in love with it. They're not alone because they're also teamed up with these fairy-like creatures known as the Mollies. And there's all kinds of myths and legends that goes into making this, and you can see where he borrowed a lot of elements from, or he was inspired by some stories and folklore. And then, of course, there's the dark side of things, like the monsters that are dwelling underneath. Oh man, this was so good, and it has that 80s feel of nostalgia, which is so weird to say. This has been coming out for the last, oh my gosh, I want to say almost 7-8 years, but they finally collected, Top Shelf finally collected it in one big book for everyone. Now, this is definitely a book for everybody, whether you want to read it to your kids, whether you want to read it yourself because you're a dog lover. And if you're a dog lover, fear not. No dog is harmed. Just well, maybe hurt a little bit, but they could, they're fighting evil things. So just letting people know, because sometimes people worry about, oh no, does the dog die at the end? You're okay on this one. But yeah, loved it. Fell in love with it. I loved every part of this book, and I want more of these stories. All right, enough about cute little doggies and creatures and magical forests. Let's talk about something manly. That's right, we're going to be talking about Conan by Jim Zub, published by Titan Comics. Oh my gosh, is this book so freaking awesome. I had the chance to interview Jim Zub, and he gave me like a free early copy of the Free Comic Book Day Conan. And I read it, and I was like, oh my gosh, they got Roberto de la Torre doing the artwork in here. And I remember reviewing a Marvel, it was like a backup issue of a Conan book, and I was like, this is the guy you need. He's got that mix of big John Buscema, but some Joe Kubert in him, and his own style, and it just works. And let me tell you what works. It is the storytelling. It is the way that Jim Zub respects the character and the lore and understands what and who Conan really is. By crumb, I can't believe how good these stories are. It's a throwback to the Roy Thomas era of the Marvel Comics. And of course, Roy Thomas was heavily inspired. How could I can't even use the word inspired. He took a lot of everything from Robert E. Howard, and even wrote and created his own stories and characters out of Robert E. Howard's other stories that aren't Conan. But Jim Zub is doing the same thing without the heavy dialogue. He lets the sword do the talking. And when I say the talking, there's no like flashy sound effects in here, so it kind of reminds you of that Roy Thomas era where the lettering, like it's not over the top, like clang, bang, things like, oh my gosh, this book is so good. The journey of the Sumerian going through these stories, like I think I have read 10 volumes of the omnibus editions. I've read the Dark Horse stuff. I've read the original Robert E. Howard books, stories. I've read what's available so far in omnibus format, 9 volumes of Savage Sword of Conan, the Marvel stuff, and it's reading this just makes me want more and more, because this is the type of Conan that I want. This is the type of Conan that I think a lot of people have missed out on. And if you've ever wanted to try Conan out, the comic book, whether you like the movies, whether you like the cartoon, the video game, or you might have seen one of the old comics and you're like, oh, there's a lot of issues, check out that first collection, because it will blow your mind. And if you don't like it, then Conan may not be for you. And that's the thing, right? About these type of videos. Not every story is for everyone, and that's okay. Except for Conan. Mature content, by the way, because all the action and the boobage is back. All the stuff that you liked about Conan, Savage Sword of Conan, that stuff, that's all back in here, but in color. Poison Ivy by G. Willow Wilson and Marcio Takara, published by DC Comics. This is a book that completely took me by surprise. My buddy Bar said that I would love this, bought me the first 2 volumes for my birthday, and we did an old reader, new reader on it. And I was taken back how wonderful and deadly and dark this could be. This is definitely one for teens or older teens. So this is all taking place, if you're a chronological order reading nut, this is all taking place after the events of Queen Ivy and how she split from Pamela Isle, and now Pamela is learning to understand herself, and she's kind of broken away from her past. So you're not bogged down by a lot of history. I think G. Willow Wilson does an amazing job of explaining things that have happened in the past, especially with Gotham, and like I mentioned, the Queen Ivy and the Tide to the Green, and then Harley Quinn, but just has her own story to tell, and it's almost like a redemption story. It's hard for a writer to write a story about a villain sometimes. I think it takes a specific type of writer to handle somebody that is a killer, a thief, and not a good person. But there's still some redeemable qualities to them. In a way, things like The Sopranos or Breaking Bad did it wonderfully, where you start feeling like, oh, Tony's not a bad guy right after he just strangled somebody. Well, it's the same way here. Like, Ivy, you start feeling for her. You want her to win. You want her to be treated fair. But then she still does evil things and reminds you, oh, I'm a supervillain. And, oh, man, it is so good. And let me tell you, that artwork, oh my gosh, DC, please, when this all is over, release it in omnibus format. Release it in an absolute format, because it deserves it. Takara's artwork is beautiful. The colors are wonderful. This is one that I fell in love with the story and the art, like, immediately as soon as I opened up the book. So, absolutely recommending it. And like I mentioned, older teens for this one. The book that I'm sure everybody else put on their list, doesn't matter, it deserves it because it's that good. Beneath the Trees Where Nobody Sees. This is by Patrick Horvath, published by IDW, and much like Dwellings, don't let the pictures make you think that this is for kids, because this is absolutely mature content and definitely not one for the faint of heart. I hate saying that, but that is the best way I can put it. This is the story of an anthropomorphic character named Samantha, who's a brown bear, and every character in here is an anthropomorphic animal. So think of things like the Duck comics, or Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, or Usagi Yojimbo. Samantha lives in this small town, and she lives a double life. By day, she is a hardware store owner, and sometimes she has to go and kill. And that's what she does. She's a serial killer. But she has rules. And the rules are, one of them, anyway, because I can't reveal all the rules, you don't kill in the same town. You go and kill outside, you go and kill in the city. Because the locals can never suspect you of murder. Nobody can. However, another serial killer shows up in her small town. So she realizes she has not really competition, but somebody may know that she is a serial killer. And now she has to try to find out who's killing the citizens of her town. Oh, man. Another book I could not put away. And I'm so glad that a sequel is coming out, because I do want to see where that goes. I got to interview Patrick Horvath, which I haven't aired yet. I need to do that. It's been a rough couple months, but he talked a little bit about it, so I'm curious where the story goes. If you haven't seen it, if you haven't read this, do yourself a favor. If you like any kind of horror kind of stories and can stomach grotesque violence, because there's a lot of realistic violence. Some people can't deal with that. Some people can deal with like over-the-top violence, but when it comes to like realistic violence, this book has it. And yeah, so if you're into that stuff, you sicko, welcome to the party, pal. Go and check this out. Miracleman, The Silver Age by Neil Gaiman and Mark Buckingham, published by Marvel Comics. Now, if you can't support Neil Gaiman and don't want to know anything about this, by all means, there's another book right around the corner. Go to the time step and go on that. But this was one of my favorite reads. I have been waiting, much like everybody else, decades for this book. Ever since we got the Golden Age, which was a follow-up to, of course, Alan Moore's Miracleman. So I was going to say the whole Marvel Man. But anyway, this was such a unique read, because what I was expecting, and that's what happens, right? Like year after year, you're like, okay, this is where the story's going to go. We do the same thing with things like Star Wars. We have all these franchises that we have expectations. And when the final product doesn't meet those expectations, we're like, how dare you? Because in your head, you've already kind of made up how the story should go. Even though this did not go the way that I wanted it to go, it still blew me away. The way that he was able to handle the character of Dickie Dauntless, young Miracleman, coming back and trying to fit into the real life while you're seeing what's going on with Miracleman and Miracle Woman, and then the way that he changes the characters and where it could lead into the next arc. Who knows if there's going to be another one? I hope I think it's the Dark Ages. Yeah, so it's Golden Age, Silver Age, and then Dark Age. Who knows if we'll get the Dark Age? I certainly hope so, because I really enjoyed this, and I think we deserve an ending, and then hopefully like an omnibus size when all three are released. But until then, this book was excellent. I loved it, and it's not your type. It's a lot different than the Fantastic Four, that's for sure, and it does have mature themes, so just keep that in mind. This one is for mature contents and only available in trade paperback. No hardcover, no oversized hardcover, nothing like that. Valiant Universe Hero Origins Rye by Matt Kindt and Clayton Crane, published by Alien Books Valiant Comics. I have never read the 2012 reboot of Valiant Comics until this year, when Alien Books Valiant Comics decided to publish these Valiant Hero Universe Origins and go back and, with a beautiful matching spine, by the way, like all them connecting spines. Oh, awesome. But what they did was give us these stories in a suggested reading order, and it has been a blast to see how this universe was built and what one story leads into the next story, and I was blown away. First of all, Clayton Crane's artwork is amazing. Matt Kindt was one of my favorite, like, I don't want to say indie writers. He's blown up since then, but he's done a lot of spy stuff. This is so different. This is set in the same universe as all the other 2012 Valiant books, but it is in the year 4001, and how Japan has left Earth and is now orbiting Earth. And the citizens are now living under this unseen authority called Father. And it is pretty much, he's used to regulate the population. People are living with AI units. However, there's a group of revolutionaries that are fighting Father and his forces. And one of them happens to be this badass character named Rai. Completely blew me away, and I love how unique this one was. The rest of the Valiant universe was great. I enjoyed every one of those books that I read in different ways, even the one that I didn't think I would enjoy. This one, it's unique because it's taking place thousands of years into the future, but it still ties heavily into the main universe. So you'll see some characters pop in and out here, or some events pop in and out of this. Oh man, if you've not read any of the 2012 Valiant, and I had only read the 90s Valiant, go and check out any of these Valiant Hero Origin books. Any of them. Every one of them are great, but I think you will find the one that you enjoy. Just randomly pick one out, Archer and Armstrong, or the Exo Man Award. But anyway, yes, Ride was my favorite out of all of 12 of those. This was my top. Well, I almost forgot. This one, yeah, teen. Yeah, rated teen, absolutely. The Girl Who Sang, a Holocaust memoir of hope and survival by Estelle Nadel and Sami Savos, published by Roaring Brook Press. This is my most powerful read of the year. Because the events that happen in this book really took place in the life of this young girl. And this little girl's name is Anya Feld. And it's all about her and her family, and how in 1939, when the Nazis invaded Poland, how she survived and how she would eventually learn to sing again. It is a story about hope. It is a story about survival, which is the title of the book. It is a story of sadness and loss, but wins and never giving up. And it moved me in ways that, whenever you're looking at a subject like this, and when you're watching movies or reading books about this subject matter, it will hit you, and you know what to expect. But still, I wasn't expecting the ending to hit me as hard as it did. And it did. And when you find out what happened to Anya Feld, oh man, it wasn't even manly eye sweat by that point. It was just tears rolling down my face without realizing it. I thought it was a beautiful story. I love the way that it's drawn, because it reminds me of that classic anime that I loved, pre-Studio Ghibli when I was in Peru watching like Marcos, or watching Anna Green Gables, like things like that. It's what I loved about Saba's artwork, and the writing is just absolutely beautiful. This is definitely one I would recommend anybody like middle school age and up, because of the subject matter, right? It's not graphic in any kind of way, but just the things that happened to some of the people in this story. And I don't want to say characters, because these were people in her life, and I don't want to demean that in any way by saying, oh, the characters in here, even though they do have that cartoony look to them, this still happened in her life. So absolutely the most powerful read of the year is this book right here. Last but not least is Birthright by Joshua Williamson and Andre Bresson, published by Image Comics. And this one might be cheating a little bit because I had read the first trade paperback 10 years ago, but completely forgot. Like, I just set it aside and I'm like, one day it'll be a hardcover. And I just had to wait a decade. And here we are. And I had forgotten what happened. But this is all the story of the Rhodes family. Their son, Mikey, goes missing when he's a young boy. However, a year later, a man claiming to be Mikey, a barbarian-looking man, shows up at a police station saying that he's here, he's back, and he wants to be reunited with his family, but also on a mission to destroy these 4 escapees from that other dimension that he just got back from, because he needs to take those escapees back to that dimension. So there's a twist with the story I don't want to reveal if you haven't read it, but it is definitely a story about a boy going into another world, a fantasy realm, and then coming back a man. And what do you do as a family? Because the family is broken, right? Like, his brother doesn't want to believe him. The mom and the dad are separated because she thinks that the dad killed the son. It's, oh man, there's one more volume after this. It's not solicited yet, but I hope it comes out in 2025, because one of my favorite reads this year. And it came really close to also being one of my favorite collected editions, just because of the way the book is built. Oh, it's beautiful. If you don't own this edition, you just like pretty books on your shelf, this is the one. Now, speaking of books on your shelf, if you're interested in purchasing any of the books I just talked about today, check out our sponsors.
If you're in Europe and you're interested in buying these books, definitely check out Walt's Comic Shop in Berlin, Germany. They have the cheapest pre-order prices, flat shipping rate of €12 for all EU countries, emails answered within 24 hours, waltzcomicshop.com, and you can use the code nearmintcondition at checkout and get free shipping for all EU countries with your first order over €40. That's Walt's Comic Shop, your reliable source for omnis and premium collected editions in Europe. Ding!
CheapGraphicNovels.com, your online home for graphic novels and collected editions up to 50% off cover price. They have excellent shipping and prompt and helpful service. Check out their bargain deals for up to 90% off cover price. And don't forget that CGN also takes pre-orders. That way you don't miss out on the hottest releases. And they are currently running a special promotion for you Minties. If you're a first-time customer, after receiving your order confirmation email, reply back to that email and let them know Near Mint Condition sent you their way. They will then apply a free shipping promotional credit to your next order in the US. Cheap Graphic Novels, your source for the hottest books with the kind of deep discount, quality shipping, and customer service that will keep you coming back for more. And those were my top 10 reads of 2024. And the last video of 2024 from Near Mint Condition. In the comments down below, let me know what your favorite reads were of 2024. And if you read any of these, what you thought of the stories. And yeah, I would love suggestions too, because despite of how much I read, I did not read everything. And at this time, I just want to thank every single one of you all that have watched my videos, liked my videos, shared our videos, and joined the live streams, and try to win some prizes whenever I just give away things randomly. Thank you all. It's a wonderful and humbling blessing to be doing this every day. It's a lot of work, and I hope I'm making my dad proud. Much love.